Emil Cadlick here with FantasyNation.com. We have a wonderful pioneer of fantasy sports who started his business way back in 1988. Yes, in the 1980s, he started Commissioner Software that actually was sold in stores. I don't want to go too much into detail because he'll do it. And I also had a journal, a how to play journal he did for many years too. So a wonderful pioneer, and I'm truly honored to introduce Patrick Hughes. How you doing today?
Hey, great, Emil. Glad to be with you.
Yes, we're going to have fun here. So just to get started, in your youth, were you interested in sports?
Yeah, I was attending baseball games back in 1961 at the old Griffith Stadium. And then, of course, they built the Robert Kennedy Stadium, went to Redskin games, Washington Senators games up until the Nats got shut down in 71 and had to wait, 33 years until baseball came back to the nation's capital.
Wow, that is a long time. So when did you...
So I became an Oriole.
Oh, an Oriole fan.
Yeah.
That probably worked out pretty well.
I was at Cal Ripken's 21-31 game and all the special games there.
So you're a big sports guy, and when was the day you heard about this fantasy sports thing?
I've been playing in a fantasy football league since 1983. A group of us at an office got it started and played for 5 to 6 years and realized that it needed a great update in the way to track and keep scoring.
So as you're playing in this thing, you started to think about the business aspect.
I did indeed.
Yeah, it didn't take too many years since you started your business in '88. So just a quick note, what's your what you went to school for or whatnot?
Sure. My background is in sales and marketing, and I was working, I believe, at IBM at the time when I went to my brother, who was a computer programmer, and asked if he could create a software program to manage our league stats. And he was doing accounting software at the time, so it was an easy port over to fantasy. So we created a league management tool for fantasy football.
And what year was this?
1988.
Wow. So
yeah. So
go ahead.
So we actually put together a retail package because obviously there was no internet at the time. And we got it into the 4 main retail outlets: Egghead Software Boutique, Electronics Boutique, and CompUSA.
Wow. Here's a picture of it. I don't know if you can see it on your monitor. That picture.
Yeah, there we go.
All of your journals and your software on the right, starting in 88 through 90. Can't see them too well, but that's a
Here's the great part of the story. So the games started appearing in the retail stores in '88, and I get a call from the National Football League, NFL Properties, and they said, you're going to have to get a license. So I applied and got a license from the great Frank Vuno of NFL Properties. And they said, Pat, Miller Brewing Company has come to us and asked if we had a different twist on our coverage of NFL football. And we decided to hook you up with them. So I went out to Milwaukee, met with Miller, and we created Miller Franchise Football. And essentially it was a version of what every league in America plays now. But because there was no internet, the only way to get the statistics was to use FedEx. And so we got FedEx as a partner, and we would compile all the stats for Miller Franchise Football, watch the game Monday Night Football, and as soon as the last play ended, we'd hit the send button. So we actually had the early version of email, sent the file over to Memphis, and they had 350 FedEx packages waiting every Monday or Tuesday morning. And they made copies and put them in all the FedEx envelopes to all the local beer bar owners. And we ended up with like 6,500 bars playing in the first year of 1989. And the reason is Miller got John Madden to do a distributor sell-in video to all the Miller beer distributors. And it was the hottest program and first year promotion Miller's ever had. And essentially that's what launched fantasy football nationwide.
That's incredible. What a great story. So let me understand a little bit. I'm trying to turn my volume off on my phone since I had it on earlier. So it was a game through bars, and
Yes.
they actually FedExed the stats to the bars. And what did the bars do with it at that point?
Okay, so there was rules on how to play. So you went to your bar and you set up your rules. You got all your players to come to the bar, and we would FedEx the statistics to the distributor, who would then copy them, and then they would go out on their tours on Tuesday afternoons and deliver all the statistics to all the participating bars and taverns.
And then what would the bar do with those stats? Did they do something manually, or did they use your software?
They would post them, and then everybody would come in and match their players versus the posted scores.
Oh, okay, so they put
So
them
it was a standardized scoring system. And then to promote it even more, Miller got, they used to produce the Miller Lite football handbook for the NFL, and they would insert 12 to 14 million copies in 12 packs of Miller Lite, all during August and September. And the rules on how to play the game were in those 12 to 14 million Miller Lite handbooks.
What a deal. And
Yeah.
some of this came through the fact that the NFL properties wanted you to get a license, and then opened up these doors a little bit.
That's correct. And it was done through NFL creative properties. So on the one hand, Miller was promoting fantasy football, and on the NFL side, they hated it and didn't want to be associated. But they knew it was doing incredible for the ratings.
So the NFL, let's stop on that point. Even in the 80s, they hated fantasy. Well, did they hate fantasy football, or were they scared of it because it was like gambling? Or they worried about it being gambling?
Both. The word gambling was used many a time. I actually met with Commissioner Tagliabue on several occasions. For some of you that don't know, Paul Tagliabue used to work at a Washington, D.C. area law firm, a major firm, and they actually went back to that firm after he left being commissioner.
Wow.
So he loved fantasy football because of what it was doing for the ratings, but because of the gambling tinge, he had no knowledge of it publicly.
So
it's a great story.
That's incredible. Just for my edification and viewers' edification, NFL Creative Properties, that's not the Players Association.
That was a division of the NFL.
Division of the NFL back then. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just an incredible story. So now the Players Association, how did you get involved with them?
So the Players Association is headquartered right here in Washington, D.C., and Gene Upshaw was the executive director. So Gene had me come down and did the same thing, got a license. So my games were the very first fantasy licenses of both the National Football League and the NFL Players Association.
That's incredible. And your brother
1989.
And your brother wrote the software.
And he did indeed, yes.
That's incredible. So I'm not sure which where to go here next, but as your software grew, your software, there's a point where when somebody loaded your software in a computer, there were computers then. Yes, there were. I remember there were computers. And how did they get the weekly weekly stats?
We literally got the stats out of the box scores in the Washington Post, and then we would have to watch Monday Night Football and record every score as it was being played.
And then you put it in some kind of a file and you emailed it to them, or how did they? Or was there a bulletin board?
So in the beginning, you had to send out floppy disks, the old 3.5-inch floppies.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was horrible. So we sent them out priority mail to keep the cost down, and had pre-labeled packages, and every Tuesday they went out.
So, these people were starving by Thursday or Friday to turn the crank on that week. Did you ever evolve into just sending an email with a file or a bulletin board or something like that?
Yeah, eventually we did that. And then the other part of the great story is Fox Sports started playing, and they came to me and asked us to create Fox Fantasy Football.
Yeah,
so
what
we
time
did that.
frame was this?
This would have been 1991, I think.
Wow, very early. Okay.
And so they invited me out to watch one of the NFL on Fox Sunday shows with Terry Bradshaw and pretty much Howie and Terry. And during one of the breaks, we asked Terry if he'd be interested in being a spokesman for us, and he said absolutely.
In 91.
And it was 95.
95
So
okay.
So Terry ended up being on the cover of our last three publications.
And you also had Brett Favre somewhere mixed in there. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, so a great story. So I was at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and Green Bay Packers won the game. Terry was, of course, the Fox announcer that he always does when Fox has the broadcast, was up on the podium with all the players and the coaches and the trophy. And right next to me was an incredible photographer, and she snapped that picture of Terry interviewing Brett with the trophy right between their shoulders, and that became our box cover.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So was it hard to get the retail? You went retail fairly early. It sounds like you went the first couple of years. Was it, how did that process, how hard was that process to do?
Retailers were looking for sports products outside of this standard stuff that a normal computer store was using. So it was easy to get the games in there. And I got the world's biggest distributor, Ingram, to do the distribution. And then when Terry got on the cover, sales went crazy.
Yeah, so they put them in the stores for you fairly easily.
Yep.
And then the sales went nuts. Did they increase distribution when Terry got on the cover also, or?
Yeah, it went up tenfold.
Tenfold. What a great marketing story on top of everything else. I still can't believe you're in 6,500 bars and restaurants.
Sports bars and taverns.
That's an insane number of.
Right out of the box, 1989.
Really? Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So tell me about the patent.
So in order to protect our software, we applied for a patent way back in 88, and it issued in 1990. And thankfully, we had that when all the big networks decided to get into fantasy. They essentially took my software and reverse engineered it and essentially came out with my same league management software tool.
And what time frame was this?
This was about 1996, 97.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the main culprits were CBS Sports Line, ESPN, which was ESPN Ventures, and Yahoo.
Yahoo. Some big players.
So we had a little dust up with patent infringement with those three and CNN and many others, and pretty much won in court and settled with everybody and provided licenses.
So
till the patent ran out.
Oh, okay. CNN, huh? What did they?
Well, CNN was associated with Sports Illustrated at the time, Time Warner.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how long did the patents last?
Back then they were 17 years, so it expired in 2007.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good number. So tell me about this Inside the NFL, the first time on national TV.
Yeah, the NFL had a show, NFL Films produced. Remember Steve Sabol, the great, who his dad started the NFL Films, and then he was the pretty much pioneer. They did a great interview of me way back in 1989 with the legendary Kallas, the broadcaster for the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't know who it's not Kallas, is it? Harry Kallas?
Kallas, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Harry.
Yeah, Harry Kallas, yeah.
Harry Kallas.
Wow. What a whirlwind set of things that occurred with you in a very short period of time. That's fantastic.
And one last good story for you was Jerry Jones was being interviewed by Larry Wiseman at USA Today.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And Jerry says to Larry, hey, Larry, who's the foremost expert on fantasy football? I need to meet him. Larry says, well, it's Patrick Hughes. He goes, well, where does he live? He lives right here in Northern Virginia with me. He goes, well, have him come down and meet me when we play the Redskins next. So I got together with Jerry at his hotel at the Capitol Hilton, the penthouse suite, and Jerry pretty much negotiated a deal right then and there. He was going to pay me $3 million for 51% ownership in our company and, take it to the moon. And so his attorney, who now is the president of the Baltimore Ravens, started working through the due diligence and had to run it by the NFL. And the NFL said, no problem, Jerry, we'll do that, but you have to share the profits with all the other NFL owners. So that kind of killed that deal.
Oh, and that would have been incredible.
Yeah.
That would have been incredible. What a great story.
So Jerry had the foresight to see how big fantasy was, and then, of course, he would have helped us corner the market.
Oh, yeah, that would have been incredible. He's obviously a pretty smart character, and obviously you are too.
Thank you.
So any more, I'd see, I remember just interesting wise, I remember two guys that worked for you, and I can't remember their names. Do you remember?
Yeah, Dave Warner.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
I think, Dave Warner on a number of occasions. And Brett, can't remember his last name. He ended up at working for USA Today.
Oh, did he really? Okay. I think I remember playing basketball with him at one of the trade associations. We had a
exactly. Now my story had a happy ending, Emil.
Yes, fire away.
So as I was progressing with our league management software, I realized that at some point it could be ported over to what was then touted as interactive television.
Oh.
And in the early days, we used to do road shows, and we'd be on these panels. And Emil, the panel leader, was Mark Cuban.
No, you got to be kidding me. This is crazy.
So there I was going around doing these shows on interactive television, and Mark was the headliner for the panel. And I got the attention of some other players that worked for Fox Sports, and eventually sold the business to a company that Rupert Murdoch and News Corp owned.
Wow. That's What time frame was this?
That was 2001.
Oh, was it really? Okay.
Yeah.
So the patent
It closed just a couple months before 9/11. So the deal would have never been done had it been 2 months later.
Yeah, and so the patent was still active at that point for several years after that. That's a great story. Interactive TV. Go ahead.
Yeah, so as it turns out, the company that bought them was called Gemstar TV Guide. Of course, the famed TV Guide, and they ended up selling the patents to a group of attorneys that I heard ended up taking the cases to federal court in the Eastern District of Texas against all the sports leagues and the fan duels and ended up making huge bucks out of them.
So they got licenses and they got paid off or whatnot and made some money out of it.
Yes. So the patents ended up being pretty valuable.
Wow. And that's incredible. So, hey, let me show you something from the internet from 1999. There's your website from 1999.
There we go.
When did you start getting into the other sports other than football?
We got in very quickly. So we were doing all four major sports by 1991.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Obviously, baseball was really big back then. I don't know about hockey or basketball.
I hate to make this revelation, but I once owned the trademark fantasy basketball and fantasy hockey.
Oh, did you really?
But it got challenged, and I ended up not being able to hang on to it.
Yeah. That's a deal. You have to tell me about that kind of stuff off record. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
So, any other stuff I've missed here that you'd like to bring up, or any other stories you can think of off the top of your head?
No, you've got it. I ran fantasy sports leagues for 21 years. Got a good payout at the end with the acquisition by News Corp, and just had an incredible run going to Super Bowl after Super Bowl and promoting it. And the finale is the Pro Football Hall of Fame ended up putting that one Terry Bradshaw fantasy football box in the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame building with the that looks like the football.
So your product is or was sitting in the Hall of Fame.
It still sits there.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and so I was there in 2016. I went to the Cubs when they beat the Indians in Game 7 in Cleveland, and there were no hotel rooms, so we had to stay an hour away. So we picked Canton, and then we said we'd go see it. So sure enough, the curator takes us up there, and there it was. I'll send you some pictures of it. And as you know now, Johnson Controls has taken the branding of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Village. They're adding like $250 million in all kinds of buildings and convention center, hotels, learning centers, and we're in discussions to have not only all of our products be displayed in one of those facilities, but we'd like to see all of the original pioneers in fantasy have their products displayed as well.
Yeah, and we've been talking about that, and I'm excited to help you on that, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
that later when I have to put it online. But that'd be fantastic.
Wouldn't that be?
Go ahead.
I mean, there's 60 million people that play fantasy sports, and it would be one of the biggest draws for the Hall of Fame.
It would be a fantastic draw. It would be unique. Yeah. You know how passionate fantasy players are, and I think they would feel very honored to see that and come visit that. I totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and with the 60th anniversary of the beginning of fantasy football being 1962, just 2 years from now, that would be an ideal time to have a big promotion on it.
Yeah, actually, baseball started in '59 with Bill Winkelbach also, and he did golf. I have no evidence other than interviews. I do have the rules for the baseball one, which was called the Superior Tile Summer Invitational Home Run Tournament. And obviously, Winkelbach owned a company called Superior Tile.
Yeah.
And he also, at that time, right around 61, 62 or so, he bought 10% of a football team that was in Oakland, and they became the Oakland Raiders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what's interesting about all that, go ahead.
Which is the birthplace of fantasy football at King's X Sports Bar.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is fantasy football was created to support professional football that evolved into the NFL, who hated fantasy football for decades until they decided to try and take it over when they decided it was something important, which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to the 1998 fantasy sports convention in Las Vegas at the Tropicana Hotel?
I was not at that one. I was at the one in Colorado, but not that one.
What's the one in Colorado? I don't remember that one.
Was it Colorado? I don't know. Maybe I was. I was at a few of those back then.
Okay, gotcha. Because I know also back a few years before then, around 96 or 7, Fanball did one at the in Minnesota.
I was at that one, yeah.
Were you at that one? Cool.
Yes.
You remember much about it?
I don't, but what I do remember was it was also a preview of, you may recall, the Super Bowl was at the stadium. So I think that's why it was in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, actually, that's where their company is. So
that's
probably why they did it there. Well, this is an incredible story. You're truly a pioneer of fantasy sports, and this is just a great story. I'm just excited about getting it all down on video. Any other stuff you'd like to bring up?
I think we got it covered.
Cool.
The next chapter is to get all of the fantasy pioneering games and software and books and magazines on those walls where they deserve to be in Canton, Ohio. That'll
be fun putting that together. I'm excited to work with you on that. There's going to be a lot of stuff. I hope they have enough room over there. There's a lot of stuff.
We got miles of walls. It's a great complex that they're developing.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your career, a fantastic career, and you're obviously truly a pioneer of fantasy sports, and thanks for being on, and congratulations for everything you've done.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Emil. It was great to see you again.
Yes, it's been a few years.
Yes.